somebody with I'm gonna beat you up. No, they may work on them for 6 months. Yeah. Same way they do in marriages. Same way in the community. That's the point that we're making. That is the dynamics of power and control aren't any different. And in fact, and so when you have those,
but again, we have systems set up to.
True, but and I guess my argument is that with staffing and facility type, with nobody telling, there's only so much with all of the reporting systems in the world. You know. Welcome to Health Issues. I'm your host, Chris Sylvain, and we are totally excited today about a show that is so important to us, and we're really honored more than anything to have a distinguished guest. We have the Sheriff, Marlin Gusman. Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks for having me on Health Issues.
Hey, we're excited and obviously honored, overjoyed to have you, and we really appreciate it. And obviously, the topic at hand is Orleans Parish Prison Complex. And first of all, just generally, your view, how's it going?
Well, going back, Katrina devastated the jail. We went from a really big facility, one of the 8th largest in the nation, to where now we're a much smaller facility. Right. All of the beds were destroyed. We didn't have anything, and we slowly came back. And now we have a jail that's about 1/3 of the size, but still rebuilding. So we have the construction projects along the expressway, a new housing facility, a new warehouse, new kitchen, so we can better serve the meals, better prepare the meals. And the new housing facility is really something that we're looking forward to. We're going to close some more buildings. I've already closed a bunch of buildings, including the infamous HOD, and we're going to close OPP, and we're going to close Conchetta, and close the tents that are still being used 8 years after Katrina. So there's a lot of change that we're very close to really experiencing and having the ability to realize it, but still a little bit longer.
Okay. Well, just for the audience, as a point of disclosure, I think I had mentioned it before for regular watchers of Health Issues. I worked in the prison under Sheriff Fody 30 years ago as a corpsman, and now I'm back. This is just recent, within December. There on usually many of the Wednesday nights as a chaplain, so I get a chance to go inside the prison. So just as a point of disclosure, there as a chaplain. And I guess...
And I want to thank you for your service as a chaplain. It is an unpaid position. I want everybody to know that.
Right.
You don't get paid a thing, and yet you come in along with other individuals, male and female, and minister, counsel, talk to these young men and women who are desperately in need of having someone that they can converse with, that they can have some rapport with, and hear a message. So thank you so much to all that you do and all the other chaplains.
Hey, well, no, we thank you for allowing us to come in, and I think that is key, and we have always been well received, and really appreciate that. But and I think that disclosure is necessary, because I've been a critic. We had Katie Schwartzman on about 1.5 years ago. That was prior to they filing, I think right after they filed that thing with the Justice Department. And the concern is obviously rapes and beatings. That's the concern. I have not seen rapes and beatings, so I'll tell anybody right away. I'm in a prison. I go in, all right, old jail, all the time, A1, B1, and so forth. My concern from the prisoner standpoint, and we talked about it, because of the staffing, because of the layout of the facility, and when you add in the concept of people don't tell on rapes and beatings. And beatings sometimes that can come out, but for rapes, nobody tells. Your thoughts on that? You know, the Southern Poverty Law Center, whatever, they got a lot of information. Just your thoughts.
Well, first of all, rapes are really awful sounding. You know, I think a lot of what the Southern Poverty Law Center has said is greatly, greatly overstated. Okay. Has it ever happened? Sure, it's happened. Okay. We have a zero tolerance on it. Okay. Every single allegation, whether it's flimsy, whether it's concocted, we take it seriously. Okay. We take it to a third-party, independent source at University Hospital, the sexual assault nurse examiner. They examine. We don't let our opinion fly on that. Mm-hmm. But look, the OPP, you talk about facility layout, was built in the 1920s. Right. There was a different way to address incarceration in the 1920s. Mm-hmm. We're a lot better as a community, as a state, and as a nation, and as a world in how we incarcerate people. The new facility that we have, far better layout, far better ability for us to manage, observe, and treat people with better conditions, more dignity, and more respect. It's a lot different, you know. So we're looking forward to the new building. We think it's going to enhance our ability and really have greater accountability on what we're doing.
Question: if looking at the issues, and I think keying in on rapes, I think is important. Rapes and beatings, and I'm one who said, okay, rapes and beatings, we have to cut this. Something has to be done to deal with this. But is it any different in other facilities around the country that have that type of old layout? Because you got a guard, you know, and then you have cells going all the way down. All right, so. I mean, unless you have staffing with 2 or 3 guards there watching or throw cameras up, how can anybody know what's going on? Is it any different there in another facility? Your thoughts?
Well, look, we're way below the national averages on rapes, absolutely. And I'm going to stay away from that after I say this. That look, that is a great exaggeration. I said that in the beginning. Mm-hmm. That's not happening. Does it happen? Can it happen? Sure it can. Okay. In a facility like this, where you have linear construction, you have to walk all the way down to the end of the hallway to be able to look into a cell. Right. It's a difference. It's you know, right. And right. Modern 21st century design doesn't have you walking down to the end of a hallway. Okay. It has a larger day room. It has a better ability for you to do video surveillance. All of those things improve right. direct observation, where the deputy is inside of the living and housing unit as opposed to being behind a plexiglass and really not being a part of the environment. Right. All of those things are important. All of those things are things that we are implementing in the new facility, in the new design. It's going to be a lot better.
Sounds good. Hey, I think that's solid, and it makes a whole lot of sense. The next thing, the concept of mixing strong and weak prisoners. Your thought on that?
Well, you have to identify those that are predators, those that are victims, those that have the ability to become a predator or to become a victim. We were talking before that somebody might be big and strong on the street as long as he's got a gun in his hand. Mm-hmm. You get in the jail and you get a little bit down to size. That's right. You do your best to try to eliminate, reduce those things, but just like crime in the street is a crimes of opportunities, same way inside the facility. So that if someone sees an opportunity, they see someone who they think they can beat up around, you know, they're going to try to take that opportunity. That's why it's so important for us to be attuned, to be in sync to be aware of what's going on those cells. And look, we've instituted electronic grievances where someone can go, and when they're ordering their commissary, they can also let us know about anything that's happening on the tier confidentially. Those things have helped us a whole lot. You know, they don't have to write out a piece of paper now where anybody else could get a hold of it. So there are a lot of systems we're putting in place, already have put in place, that are making things a lot better.
Okay. And I have to bring this out from when we first spoke about it. This issue in public right now with the mayor and whatever, my concern is, and I have to say this, that we have an African-American sheriff, okay? And I think race has to be an issue only because the jail is 90% African-American based upon, I think, drug crimes drive it when African-Americans don't use all the drugs, and drug crimes drive the incarceration. You know, to me, it's a big drug court at Tulane and Broad, and they end up, you know, going to jail on that. And the issue is not unique to New Orleans, and I just have to bring that out.
Unfortunately, it's not. You know, African Americans are overrepresented in the jails and the prisons across the country. When you look at it on a percentage of the population, we're overrepresented. It's unfortunate. This community has been laboring under, you know, look, antiquated facilities, outdated facilities. We really need to have 21st century modern facilities. That's what we need to have. Most of the people that go to jail come back out. And it behooves us, this community deserves to give them a chance to get better while they're in, so that when they come out, we're better. We're better off. And, you know, look, there's a lot of confusion, but it's the city's responsibility to build the jail. Now, we're replacing some facilities that were there, but it's really the city's responsibility to do it. And we've tried to work with them, and we're going to continue to try to work with them. I don't want to make this into one of these standoffs. I want it to be something that the community will benefit by. Ultimately, this is about the community and the community's interest.
Well, question then, and I have to ask this, as asked before, and I even asked it myself. Prior to this Justice Department thing and so forth, would it be wise to say that maybe from the sheriff's office it should have been more vocal about the need for more staffing and more money and more facility? Actually, but I think that goes all the way back to Sheriff Fode's time. You know, I think a public relations push or whatever to say that, hey, we have problems and we need more money to fix it.
Well, let's go back to where I started.
All right.
You know, right after Katrina, you know, Sheriff, about 8-9 months before Katrina. Right after Katrina, there was nothing.
Got it.
Totally devastated.
Right.
And it's been a moving target ever since. Okay. So what we're trying to do is get to this place. Now, I understand I'm impatient. Other people are impatient. And there's always going to be these people out here that look over your shoulder or up in the stands, and they're going to say this is what they should have done, what you should have done. Look, we have been rebuilding this facility, not trying to replace it with what we had. We're trying to rebuild it so it'll be better. It'll be more suited to 21st century corrections, and we're trying to do it as quickly as we can. We're doing it with FEMA funding. We're not putting this entire burden on the backs of the local taxpayers. Keep in mind that, you know, we have to operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We don't get a chance to say, hey, let's shut this down while we focus on this. So we've done a number of temporary facilities, like the tents, you know, like putting some Band-Aids on some of the other facilities so that we could continue to operate. Look, right after Katrina, and I'm talking right after, years after Katrina, we still had a lot of people who had court dates in New Orleans that were being transported in here every day. Lawyers couldn't talk to them. Families couldn't meet with them. It was a real burden. So we had to get them back in here. Look, the courthouse didn't open up until almost 2 years after Katrina.
Sure.
You know, so I understand people say, hey, you know, why didn't you push harder? Why didn't you do this? Look, we have a plan. We've changed the way we're going to deal with the public in terms of, you know, the building used to open onto Perdido and South Dupree Street. Now the new building will open onto Broad Street. You know, better access for the community, less of a strain on that neighborhood. So there's a lot of planning that went into it, and we're close. You know, I wish we could have less of these Monday morning quarterbacks and more of the cheerleaders on the sideline, and then maybe we would be able to get done a lot quicker.
Okay, your thoughts on the ability to come to something in the midst of the Justice Department consent decree with, because the Times-Picayune, and you know I've been a critic of them too, have used terminology, embattled sheriff, challenges the jail that has those sorts of things. To me, that's out of context from looking at other jails. I think we have problems, but let's place it in context. If we're going to look at city government, people have said it before. If we're going to call the mayor the sheriff embattled, are there problems in the city budget? The issue with the inspector general and those sorts of things. Can we even come to a win-win situation within this environment right now?
Well, first of all, let's be clear that these federal consent decrees happen all over the country.
Okay.
There was just one signed in Miami. You know, here's Miami-Dade County, affluent county. They're being required to build a new jail. See, we're ahead of them.
Okay.
We're ahead of them. Our consent decree is 2 years after we reach substantial compliance. In the police department's 5 years. I think that kind of tells you that we're a little bit ahead, that we're not as bad as maybe some people might make it sound. And if people say, you know, I'm in a battle. I'm in a battle to get this right. I'm focused on getting it right. I think we are going to get it right. We've been working at this not just yesterday, not just a year ago. We've been working at this since I became sheriff. So we're working at it. We're going to get it. We're going to fix it. And I think it's starting to come more in focus now to the public of just how much of a change we're making and what a great impact it's going to have on our community. You know, while we spend a lot of time talking about that, we're not talking about the reentry program, where we've successfully integrated more than 1,000 people that have come back into this community, and that the recidivism rate has greatly reduced for them. We're not talking about the day reporting center, which is keeping people out of jail that normally would have been stuck back in jail. So those are two programs, or the transitional work program that is allowing people at Orleans Parish to work, to earn a living, to help support their families, and to have a job record, you know, a track record when they are released. So those are things that we're doing as we continue on our rebuilding. So we're not sitting back and saying, hey, let's just wait. Or like the chaplain program, where we have chaplains of all denominations coming into the jail, affecting people, giving them an opportunity to see someone who really cares about them, who really wants them to do and be better. So, you know, there's a whole lot going on.
Question there. So, and agree. I think those are great things. That I think the big issue is human rights, caring about our fellow man, caring about them. So the question then becomes, we're caring about our fellow man. How much money will it take, and not a dollar amount, But what could be done right now, even though the new jail is still a year off before?
No, less than a year off.
Less than a year off. But even today, if what should the city of New Orleans, the citizens of the city, they say, hey, look, what we have here is intolerable. We need more staffing. We need more people, say, because of the way the facility is there an amount that that would need to, where people can come in, where the prisoners, if somebody, hey, they have committed a crime, and everybody that wants to just have them shot, I mean, we're not talking about those, saying that they need to do their time, but under the correct, proper human rights. What amount of staffing would be needed or whatever in this facility for the next, say if even the new jail was coming in 3 days, I mean, what would need to happen?
Well, connected to this is that we hire staff,
okay,
and after we train them, put them through the academy, they get offers and they leave. So we've lost probably a third, not probably, we lose about a third of our staff each year, which is an attrition rate that's intolerable for most institutions. That's important because, you know, when you have properly trained people, you're able to deliver better, more efficiently, and just outright have a better result. So that's a big thing. And connected to that, the reason why we lose people is mostly because of the pay. So we're working hard to try to get the pay up for our deputies that are working 24/7 at those facilities. Look, they work a 12-hour shift, and every 6 weeks they swap over from the day to the night shift. Tough work. You've been in there, and you've seen the deputies that work in there. They're under some difficult circumstances in antiquated buildings. You know, there's a building like the OPP that's over 80 years old, and the age shows. So all of those things, I think being able to pay people better would make a big difference. I think we'd retain more people, we'd make better use of our training that we do for them, and not have this always having to hire new people and bring them in and get them adjusted and start all over again.
What about more people? Say, like, again, let's take B1, you know, that one guard. Would it be better to have 2 or 3 that can, you know, constantly walk down those tiers or regularly to start developing rapport and so forth? Do you think that increasing the amount of guards that are in there?
Look, certainly you want to have more staff. We want to have more staff. I think having more staff in any facility, whatever the layout is, would make a difference, no doubt about it. We struggle to make sure that we are adequately staffed every day, you know, because it's not just you know, people that have their regular days off. Sometimes people get sick, you know. Sometimes they have a family commitment that comes up and they can't make it to work, you know. So it's a real struggle moving people around to make sure you're properly staffed. You want to have more relief staff. You want to have people that can come in and be there on a just in case you need me. You know, I'm here. You know, so staffing is a key issue.
Okay, good. Now, and the last thing, we have about 5 minutes before we close, just I guess to deal with this whole budgeting controversy about your budget. That seems to be the big issue with the Inspector General, and the big issue that everybody's challenged about how the money is spent. Your thoughts on it? Well,
you know, look, the Inspector General compared us to the city of Louisville.
Right.
Ridiculous. You know, their facilities are modern. Their compensation is totally different. There's no comparison between the level of custody of inmates that we have versus the level of custody that they have. The expenses that they have incurred that are paid for by the county are different than ours. It's a different situation. It really boils down to one thing, and that's that the city is obligated to pay for the cost of housing. And right now they're trying to do everything they can. talk about every boogerman that they can find, every person behind a tree, and say that's why, that's why. And really, it comes down to it. If they want to have a discussion about spending and about revenues, then we ought to have that discussion in the proper forum, and not in the press where they're just trying to exaggerate and make a big deal out of really what's not much.
I will say about the Southern Poverty Law Center and Katie Schwartzman, my understanding is that they made the point that the city has issues on producing documents for Judge Afric, if I have his name correctly, and on both sides there have been challenges with this particular judge. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, I'm going to leave all of that.
Well, that's all right. We won't have to touch that.
Judge.
Okay,
I'm not going to try to.
No, they definitely don't have to go there. And as we close on, politically, to me, the structure is nuts to have a sheriff, whether city is responsible for the jail, but the sheriff is an elected position. To me, it creates controversy and challenges, but you have run for office before and so forth. Do you see yourself running for office and other offices?
For other offices? Look, I'm really not looking past the sheriff's office right now. Okay. This is too important for our community. I'm focused on getting this done, getting it done right. Other communities have the same issues. When you go to other communities and look at, you only have to go as far as Baton Rouge. There's a struggle between the sheriff and the mayor and this is what happens. They don't want to spend, and yet the obligation is there for them to spend. So it's not unusual. Everybody has to do their part, and if everybody does their part, we get good results. Okay,
I think the moving target then, the level of care that an inmate should have. What is basic human rights that it should be sustained? And I think, to me, it's simple. Whatever money is going to take, where those basic human rights are taken care of. People should be free from being raped. They should be free from being beat. And they should have proper medical care and proper food. I think it's pretty
and I think right there, you hit the nail on the head, is that when you look at corrections and incarceration 80 years ago, that standard has changed and evolved. So levels of sanitation, levels of custody, levels of care and concern, a lot more attention. You have the Civil Rights of Incarcerated Persons Act that was enacted on the federal level. You have the Prison Rape Elimination Act. So you have a lot of legislation that has happened that really has forced people to invest more, to do more, so that we have better results.
Within 30 seconds, your philosophy on this idea of human rights for a prisoner, if you can just kind of share with us just your thoughts on it.
Well, look, everybody makes mistakes, me included. And because they made a mistake doesn't mean that we should not treat them with dignity and respect. And anywhere you go in our facilities, and you and I talked about this, we treat people with dignity and respect. Now, lots of times we don't get it back, but that's not ours to say, well, just because we don't get it back, we're not going to give it. So I believe in dignity for all people.
Thank you, Sheriff. We appreciate you. Hey, we appreciate everybody who's watching. Hey, fight as hard as you can. Justice, righteousness, truth. We have to stand on it. Thank you.